then let's on Facebook, and let's go refresh my Facebook page. And it's not quite there yet. Oh, no, still not quite there yet. It didn't come up. Let's refresh that one more time then. Okay. Okay, there we are. It says that we're now live on Facebook, folks. I always have to come on Facebook just about a minute before the program starts because I don't know. I got to make sure everything is running good. So, folks, you there on Facebook? It says you can hear. And Blanca, let's go ahead and have you just share some stuff with us, and the folks on Facebook, let me know if you hear her nice and clear because she didn't come in very well last week. So, okay, go ahead, Blanca.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us once again. Hopefully the volumes are good, such that I am heard. And we appreciate you joining us. And we've got interesting information today we're going to share regarding the condition of the economy. So that should be an interesting topic. And hopefully you can hear me okay.
Okay, they said the sound was a bit loud, so I've turned my volume down. Okay, and okay, and then I went ahead and turned the volume down a little bit on the.
Okay, well then that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Your show will go live in 5
seconds.
4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, here we go.
Love Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again on the Sedona Connection. This is the evening of November 13th, so we want to welcome you here to our live program tonight. All is well here at my home in Boca Raton, Florida, and usually I'm making comments about the weather, but I thought I know some of you folks are just absolutely freezing. And it didn't hit us down here in South Florida. We were still at 82 degrees today. We had some rainstorms, but I saw this one post on Facebook that really had me cracking up. It was a guy from Texas, and he was saying, all you folks in the north, you sent us all your stinking cold weather. You need to come down here and pick it up and take it back home with you. So I thought that was a great one. That was a new one that I haven't seen. So with that, Blanca, how are you doing on this fine evening? Because you were cold in Atlanta today.
We were, so I cannot brag about it. We got that cold front, and well, for us, 28 degrees is pretty chilly, so that's what we're going down tonight. We were there yesterday, and possibly in the 20s tomorrow too. So that's winter for us when the cold front comes through. I'm surprised it didn't get all the way to Florida because it came through real fierce, and so it's nice that you're still cozy over there in Florida.
Okay, Blanca, can you turn up your volume just a little bit on your end? Let's see if that works a little bit, because if I start turning mine up, it gets too much out of balance.
Okay, is that better?
I'm sure it probably is.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, it looks a little better on my monitors. Okay, so yeah.
Okay.
So yes, folks. Well, thank you for everybody joining us here tonight. I just want to also reiterate the fact that in the video I sent out yesterday, I made some comments about what I said last week about what's happening in Reno, and some of that information was incorrect. Basically, it all comes down to, at the end of the day, you got to know who your buyer is and who your broker is, and are they authorized by U.S. Treasury, and where's their money coming from. There is still one very good broker that is in Reno that's still there doing very well. What I found out, and I'm going to explain it to you as it was explained to me, is that he basically had said that he didn't have anybody, but the reason he was saying that is because the people above him were saying he needed to go absolutely quiet, zip his lips, don't talk about him being there or anything, and it's just because of some of the stuff that's going on. Well, with that, I'll get into that in a little bit later, but Blanca, So anything that you would like to share with us, because we may just get right into the program tonight.
Right, I think we will. Well, I remember when you made that announcement yesterday, we kind of talked about it a little bit, so I'm glad you're going to have a chance to clarify that, because a lot of people are plugged into some of the things that are going to be known, so whatever information about that comes up, I know people pay attention to it, so maybe you can go ahead and clarify. And it sounds like you have some real interesting information, point of view about the economy and what we may see coming, so I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we will. I'll get into that when we get into the program. Also last week, and then last night on the video, I talked about the new name change, the Cosmic Connection, because I'm not in Sedona anymore, and so I kind of want to move. I don't want to keep giving the impression that that's where I am. And so I put out about, so if you have some graphics works, I have it. I have a good friend that does graphics works. She sent me something, and I thought, this looks absolutely great. I love it, where it's going to be the new logo that I'll have. But that, folks, I won't be coming out with that until next year. Now, I'm going to continue to use the Sedona Connection here through the end of the year. And then when I start up again, I take about a 4-week break over the holidays. Because obviously, Christmas I don't do a show, New Year's I don't do a show, and so I usually don't start up until around the 2nd or 3rd week in January again is what I do. We take a break there. And I'll have the new name, but this time I did make a change. I tried to go in and look at what can I get for the website for the Cosmic Connection. Well, that name is already taken. So I added an S. It's going to be the CosmicConnections.com is what it's going to be. So it'll be the Cosmic Connections. It'll have an S on the name, so it'll be a plural versus a singular. It's going to be the new name of the program. Now, some of you have already sent emails that says, well, what does that mean, with the exchange and the contracts and the non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that? Absolutely nothing. Folks, the name for the radio program has absolutely nothing to do with contracts of a business. And so the Sedona Connection business will still be operating, and the contracts with that will still be in effect, but it's just that my communications now, the new radio program and the workshops that will be called the Cosmic Connections is what it will be doing. So that's what we're going to be doing there with that. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm trying to, on the update stuff that I needed to share, was there anything else in there? Blanca, can you think of anything I might have forgotten?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, so tonight, folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about what I had mentioned is about what's happening in the global economy, because there's just new stuff coming out. Now, in the newsletter that I sent out yesterday, I gave a link to the recent article of Ben Fulford. Now, I don't always agree with Ben on everything, but remember, Ben is a faithful reporter. He reports it as it is being told to him. But he is reporting that yes, there is going to be a form of a shift and change in the economy, that the economy is going to fall apart, and that the reset will come after that. And then also, I sent out a link to a YouTube video that where these two gentlemen from Australia are interviewing an economist from the United States, and he's basically making the comments that, the whole world could shut down in a week. And that's not necessarily an extreme position, folks. If everything falls into place as he says it is, yes, it can. Because, see, we have moved to a world where we are now doing businesses are doing what is called just-in-time supply, which means their supply, they have very little backup supply on hand. And here's the interesting thing is that almost all the economists are saying, when you go back all the way back to the Depression, era of 1929, is that happened because there was a huge spike in the outstanding credit. Every time since then that we have had what are called huge spikes in the amount of credit or the amount of debt that is outstanding, it's always followed up with an economic crash. That has happened, I think, if I remember right, on that article I saw it 5 times, and they showed the graphs of when it happened. So that every time there's this massive amount of debt that accumulates, is that the economy can't handle it when it starts in a downturn, and then there isn't money to pay the debt back, so the collapse starts. That's exactly what happened in 2008. But in 2008, it was predominantly the real estate debt. Well, this time, it's not just real estate, because real estate was predominantly the United States and Europe. They said this time it's absolutely global, and it's commercial and consumer debt. The debt is huge. And it's because ever since 2008, when they've been doing the quantitative easing, we've had very low interest rates. The interest rates have been, from the bank interest rates have been 3 to 4%. So businesses, and even the Federal Reserve rates have been all the way down to 1%. So businesses can borrow money at a very, very low rate. So they're just massively borrowing is what they're doing. And what this borrowing has done, they're also basically borrowing money to buy stocks. And that has then propped up the stock market to a false base, because the base of the foundation of the markets is not solid and strong. So the stock markets are in a place to just absolutely collapse. The debt is extremely high. And here's what the guy said is, for the first time, we are in a position where there is more debt than there is money supply in the world to pay it off. What does that tell you? And also he said the vast majority of the money supply is held by the wealthy people, but the vast majority of the debt is from the middle class and the lower class. And he says that is an absolute economic disaster waiting to happen. And he explained that very well. And then he said, but here's the downside if that happens. The whole world basically runs on credit. When you and I go in and purchase an item from a store, basically what happens, the store gets the product, from the shipper, and the shipper gets it from the manufacturer. And they're running on credit to each other. The shipper doesn't pay the manufacturer when he picks it up, and the store doesn't pay, the shipper when he delivers it. They are both running on credit systems with each other based on their historical track record, and they trust that. So what happens is, when you and I go in and buy something, it's usually that it's already been delivered to the store up to 3 to 4 weeks prior, and so there's a 3 to 4 week delay from the time that the store pays the shipper, and then there's another 1 to 2 week delay before the shipper pays the manufacturer. So there's always this massive delay between products being manufactured to when the consumer, you and I, purchase it, and there's a lot of credit in between. And he basically said that happens everywhere in the modern economic world. That would be all the major countries, including China. They operate that way. And he said when you have this massive amount of outstanding debt in a whole world that is based on credit, that system can fall apart very rapidly. And when that starts happening is when the businesses that we sell products from, all of a sudden their business starts falling apart, or the amount of volume we are purchasing starts to drop. They no longer have the money to pay. And when that doesn't happen, it creates a snowball effect. And he says, and with that, what happens is we can run into a system where the whole world, because now basically most of the world runs on what is called immediate supply and demand. I forgot the term that I used earlier. He says the whole world could shut down in a week. All of a sudden we could find ourselves out of money, in a very serious situation. All of a sudden there's no supplies, there's no food, because what happens is it's not being sent, it's not being manufactured, because they're not getting paid. They don't have the money to be able to buy the raw products and etc. It's the whole snowball effect. And he says we are in a situation where we have never been ever in the history of our economy where the whole world could basically shut down in a week. Now, that's a pretty scary scenario, folks. Normally, then he's saying, always make sure you have food on supply to last you for 2 to 3 weeks, etc., and stuff like that. And it's always kind of a common sense issue. We should always have an emergency supply. It was a couple months ago, you know, that Hurricane Dorian was the one that just devastated the Bahamas. And what happened, you know, it was coming west and it stopped over the Bahamas. Well, if it had not stopped, and if it had kept coming straight, and if it would have hit Florida, the Weather Service was saying it was going to hit just south of West Palm Beach, and folks, that's right where I live. We were being told, get ready. In fact, the apartment complex that I live in was actually put on an evacuation notice. And and it was interesting, because when that started happening, within 2 days, the food was gone out of the stores. The water supplies were gone. I mean, you know, batteries were gone. You couldn't go into a store and find basic food supplies, basic water, batteries for your flashlights, because when the word was that it was coming right for us within, you know, our area of about 40 to 50 miles, boom, everything was gone. And that just happened in a couple of days. So it shows you the possibility that is there. Now, but here's what's interesting. If an economic collapse is going to happen, we usually always get upfront warning signs. First of all, you really see it when the shippers, because the shipping industry is always the early key for when things start to turn down, because the shipping industry is no longer shipping, which means the manufacturers aren't manufacturing because the retailers aren't buying. The retailers quit buying because their business slows down. The thing they always look at first is there a collective drop in the shipping industry, in the trucks, in those shipping containers from stuff that is coming overseas. You get that as the early indicator. And then all of a sudden you find that the retail sales start dropping. And then all of a sudden then the stock market starts falling. And then you get usually some big announcement that creates the collapse. Now back in 2008, the big announcement was when Lehman Brothers went under. That started the snowball effect. And when they made that announcement, and it was on a Sunday afternoon, well, on Monday the market went through this huge drop. But yet for the everyday people like you and me, we still had a good 3 to 4 weeks to prepare. Because that collapse was not an overnight collapse. It went on for about 6 months, because the Dow Industrial Average fell 53% over 6 months. And most of the people who have what is called discretionary income, which means income that is, or money, funds, discretionary funds, money that is beyond their normal living expenses, the vast majority of the people have that in either real estate or the stock market. And in an economic collapse, those are the two that take the biggest drops. Now, another indicator you can watch for is a sudden rise in the price of gold and silver. Because what happens is when people who have a lot of money and they start getting fearful, they will pull it either out of the stock market or real estate, and then they will move it over to something that is tangible and more solid, and that's gold and silver. And the guy in that article, that were the two Australians interview the guy from the United States, they talk about that. Watch the price of gold. Watch the price of silver. But it's just more and more and more the economists are saying this is probably going to happen. Now, what is the estimated time frame? Now, this is just my opinion, folks. But based on the people that I talk with and the reports that I'm watching, most of the larger consensus is saying they're anticipating the big collapse to take place next spring. That's when they're thinking that's when it's going to happen. Some of the economists are saying it should have happened already, but the reason it has not happened is because the governments, i.e. and the Federal Reserve, have gone back into their quantitative easing. They're printing up billions of dollars out of absolutely nothing and putting it back into the money supply through the banks. And that's what's keeping the banks propped up, is what it's doing. But what that's doing, it's creating inflation. And we're starting to see the results of that inflation. Go into a simple little place and try to get a cup of coffee. And look at the price of a cup of coffee. It's now up to $2.50 to $3 just for a cup of coffee. And 5 years ago, it was $1.50. I can remember, back when I was in college, a cup of coffee was 10 cents. So we're seeing the inflationary effects, and it's starting to take place now to us down to the consumer level. Because the quantitative easing, when they print up these billions of dollars out of nothing and put it out there into the economic supply, that creates inflation. But there's a limit to how much of that they can do, so we don't know. But the reason I'm saying all of this, folks, is we do need to be prepared for it. I would be very cautious if you have discretionary money in the stock market. The stock market is artificially inflated, and it's in a bubble state that is ready to pop. Now, so then what happens if you have that kind of money? There's two places where you can move that money. The first place, as I said, that people will traditionally go to is gold and silver. But the new one that people are going to go into are going to be the cryptocurrencies. I think you're going to find an explosion of the cryptocurrencies, and that's coming from very good sources that I have that are communicating on the inside with banks and with economists, and the banks are even anticipating basically, a large-scale increase in the cryptocurrencies. And that's back where I'm such a firm believer in what Meta One has to offer, because it's an asset-backed currency. Now, some of you already in fact, I just had a guy put in on Facebook. It says a latte at Starbucks with oat milk is $6.25 in California. That's a latte, folks. Yeah. So some of you have been asking, already you've written up here in Facebook about what's the update on Meta One. When I said it was a banking issue, remember there's two types of banking scenarios that Meta One coin has. The coin has its own, and there's its own meta bank per se, and then there's the coin's relationship with other banks to help it operate, and then there is the Meta One account. If you're sending checks into, that's like a regular business checking account, that's the one that the banking industry has begun to cramp down on in Meta One. They're basically shutting down Meta One's commercial bank accounts where we deposit the checks. And so Robert has had to go overseas twice now, and he's opening up new accounts with banks overseas that are very favorable and are willing to work with the Meta One. But what we're seeing is a very strong resistance within a lot of the banks here in the United States toward the cryptocurrency. I've already had about 5 or 6 people just tell me on the side that they, just as an individual, they're going into opening up a bank account. They just want to open up a bank account, regular old individual bank account, and they're being asked if they're involved in the cryptocurrencies, and if they answer yes, they won't open the account for them. You see, the banks are basically saying they don't want to deal with the cryptocurrency industry because it's a threat to their existence, is what it is. And I think what you're finding, and this is my opinion, the banks that are doing that are going to be pretty short-sighted because it's not going to stop. They cannot stop it. When you read the article by Ben Fulford, he talks about how the financial industry here in the United States is run and controlled by the extremely wealthy cabal, the elite. They run and control the ebb and flow of the world's money supply. And we as individuals are subject to them. The powerful shift and change of the crypto coin industry is it shifts the power from the elite to the masses. It's everyday people like you and me are empowered. And the crypto coin industry has the ability for everyday people like you and I to be empowered and to now start participating in the massive wealth creation is what it is. This is a whole complete shift and change that's taking place to the financial industry. In my opinion, now again, this is in my opinion, see, the collapse has to happen before they can bring in the new quantum computer financial banking system, before it can be fully functional. So the collapse, in a way, it's a blessing in disguise to us. Now, yes, it can create some temporary pain for some people, but in the end, if you're aware of it and if you're prepared for it, you can come out okay, and you can end up in the long run doing very well because of the end benefits of what's happening in a scenario like that. So I'm looking at some of the stuff that I've that I've said in here. And that's pretty much what I wanted to cover tonight on all the scenarios that are based on that, the shift and change in the global economy, the global collapse that is coming. I just want to say, folks, get yourself ready. Be prepared for it. There will be preliminary signs that will showing. I will report those because I've been around this stuff and I can watch it and I can see it. And you're probably going to, if it's everyday folks like, common folks, we've got time to prepare. Now, if you've got a lot of money that's discretionary money in bank accounts or in the stock market, you need to pay a little more attention. But if you've got that kind of money, you should be paying attention, because unless you want to be at risk of losing a lot of that stuff. So I'd be ready to make sure that your funds are liquid and they're easy to move, is what I would say. Make sure your money is in a place where it's liquid and it's easy to move, because the signs and the economists are just saying it's not a question if the crash is going to come, it's only a matter of when. So with that then, Blanca, what would you like to share tonight around those comments?
Well, it's thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. And yes, it's a topic that a lot of experts are talking about, and I'm sure people have heard other experts like James Rickers and Mike Maloney and Max Kaiser. They have a different perspective and a different way of seeing things, but they would all agree with what you've just presented, that the status quo cannot last much longer. In fact, it's running on fumes already. And so some of them have a difference of opinion of when and how deep. And but the thing is, there's going to be a very big shift, and it makes sense. Don't you think? Anytime there's a big shift, people should be prepared for a transition time, a change.
Yes, it is. And a comment just came up, so after the market crash, the markets will recover, won't they? They usually always do it, and I believe they will. It's interesting, when they had the crash in 2008 and it lost 53% over 6 months. Well, within 8 months to 10 months, it was back up to where it was, and then look at where it is now. It's now 3 times the size of where it was in 2008 before the crash. So markets usually recover, but the problem is, what happens is the masses don't understand that, so they get scared, because we forget that there's about 53% of all the people in America have money in the stock market, and the majority, it's with their 401k retirement accounts. Well, when they see that happen, they get scared and they don't know what to do, so they pull it out and then they wait too long before they get back in. The markets usually always recover, but I would just be cautious this time around, because this is a major shift and change, folks. Where they're going through a major shift and change in the structure of the financial structure of the banking industry, and so I don't know how long it's going to take for this one to recover. We just don't know. So I don't know. It's hard to make comments on that one, how long before it will recover. So, but Blanca, back to you.
Well, yes, and I think you kept the message pretty simple, that just be prepared for a transition. And it could even mean banks can have a bank holiday, perhaps not. So you may want to have a little bit of extra cash at home. And then what do you think? Supply of food, maybe a week or two?
It just depends on the way that the crash happens. That's the question. Mm-hmm. It just depends on how it's going to happen. So we don't know. Now, I do know that there's an individual that's posting some stuff on Facebook that comes from some other stuff that's what's called the resistance movement from Cobra. I read that, but I want you to know Cobra's been wrong far more times than he's been right, folks. I don't know hardly anybody out there in what I call the mystical world that's been correct on this stuff. They're all making projections, and the vast majority of all of them have been wrong. So I'm questioning about how much of that is. I take a different position on this. I think it's back to, what is it's the collective consciousness of humanity that creates this stuff. It's not about outside influences manipulating or shifting or controlling stuff. But we are going through a major shift and change because of the energies that are happening to us, and I've talked about that in past programs. So I'm always cautious about, some of these other what I call, the galactic reports or whatever it is, the stuff that comes out of that, because I haven't found hardly any of them that are correct and accurate. Sometimes they are, but they're usually wrong more times than they're right in their projections. So, back to you, Blanca.
Well, you kind of transitioned to another point of view to look at this, for example, the economy and the dynamics that we're seeing as probably a signal that the old is being faded away and a new is going to emerge. And we've been talking about how we want to be part of the new, and we want to bring a better, freer world. How does this economic situation kind of dovetail with some of what you've talked about in shifting and changing, the type of consciousness we bring with us in the future, and maybe even being empowered to create the future?
I think we're seeing a shift and change from the elite being in power and control with the masses under slavery, where their masses are going to now start being empowered as individuals. The great example is to look at what the change that the email system and the internet brought. See, before the internet, we were dependent on information based on what the elite was giving to us. We were dependent upon them because we as the masses didn't have that opportunity to access the information sources and put it out as they did. And then the internet comes around, and then the next thing you know, the masses are being empowered through information because the truth is coming out because we're learning from each other. And I've heard this comment say is that what email did to the postal system is that cryptocurrencies is going to do to the banking system. And remember, the banking system has been the controlled mechanism of the power and the elite. And they're going to lose that power and control, and that power and control is going to shift over to the masses. Now, that doesn't mean that the masses are going to automatically do well, but what's going to happen is that there's going to be opportunity for the masses to do well if they are astute, paying attention, and take constructive action. It's not going to happen for you, folks. It's something you have to do yourself. So when I talk about these shifts and these changes, folks, at the end of the day, remember, I'm not the financial expert. And even when I read about these financial experts, nobody's exactly right on this stuff. But it's a larger scale picture, and we each have to be responsible for ourselves and be prepared for how a shift and change like this could impact us. And then be aware of when there's an opportunity to take advantage of, to do very well, to be empowered. So, back to you, Blanca.
Well, that's the key message, and I think especially probably for the end of this year, beginning of next year, we're just going to continue to see these types of changes, not only in the economy, but in media and perhaps in religion and family. All these institutions are up for grabs. And as you say, let's be empowered to make it for the good. Yeah. There was just a question that came up. It says, Dave, what's your opinion? Do you think the collapse will happen after the election? Well, I just said about 5 minutes ago, it says, no, I think it's probably going to start sometime in the spring. The early indications of it are. But there's no guarantee. I don't think it's going to be after the election. I think it's probably going to be before. But, see, I think you've got these elite cabal that know it's going to happen, and they may start engineering it to happen before the election to make Trump look bad. So I don't know. We just don't know. But if I have to lean anyway, I'm leaning to it possibly starting next spring. That's where my opinion is. But that's just an opinion, and it's very difficult to get anything tangible on that. So, anything else you want to share, Blanca? Well, the only thing is, I'm noticing right now it looks Blog Talk that we may have a couple of questions. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
yes.
If you would like to maybe see what they've got to ask.
We could do that, folks. Again, that was pretty much all I wanted to share on the program tonight. It's a short program, but yes, if you want to call in and ask questions or make some comments, you can call in on Blog Talk Radio, and that phone number is 515-605 9356. Again, that's 515-605-9356. And we do have two people there, and I'm just going to go right directly to them, and we'll announce you by your area code. So area code 660, you're on the air. What's your name and what can we help you with tonight? Hello? Hello? Area code 660, you're on the air. You had raised your hand that you wanted to come on the air. Well, I guess we'll move on from that one because they weren't there. But we're going to go to the next individual, and that is from area code 204. So we're going to area code 204. You're on the air. What's your name and what can we help you with? Are we getting another individual? They ended up pressing 1 on their touch-tone phone like they wanted to come on the air, but they're not. Area code 204, you're there. Is there anything you'd like to say? I thought I heard somebody there in the background. I guess not. Well, Blanca, I guess we had a couple false calls there tonight.
Well, I wanted to get to them because we had a good time to answer their questions, but I guess it must have been, well, now it looks like another one has popped up.
Oh, yes.
They're at 301.
Okay, let's go ahead, yeah, because
Maybe he has a question.
that's a new one, so that just came up, so that one's probably legitimate. Let's go to area code 301. Let's do that. Okay, you're coming up. Area code 301, you're on the air. What's your name? What can we help you with?
Hi Dave, I have a question about the Meta One coin. A couple months ago, I understand Mr. Dunlap was planning to go public with it before the end of this calendar year, but that's been delayed. And are you at liberty to say why it's been delayed?
I already mentioned it on the program tonight. If you didn't hear me earlier in the program, I already told you why. He's having some problems with the banking industry, and it's some issues he's having to work with because the banking industry has not been cooperative with a lot of the crypto coin businesses. And the bank account where when people were sending their checks in to purchase the coins, the banks were shutting those accounts down. So he had to go overseas and open up a couple of banks, overseas banks that were going to be cooperative and willing to work with the crypto industry. Because there's a lot of banks right now that are becoming very hostile to large businesses within the crypto industry. And that's the reason why. He did say yes, he's still shooting by the end of the year.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's good. Okay.
All right. Is that it? Okay. All right. Sounds like it. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. We've got another new caller here at area code 276. So we're going to area code 276. You're on the air. What's your name? What can we help you with?
David from Virginia. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. What's your name?
David from Virginia.
You're from Virginia, but what's your name?
David.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. I thought you were saying Dave. It's from Virginia, referring to me. My apologies. My apologies. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What do you got tonight?
Well, I want to ask, how much do you think the reports from Ben Beaufort are dependable? I know you had that suggested reading, your research. He doesn't seem to have a good track record from what I've seen so far.
Some of his stuff is pretty good, and some of it has been very extreme. But what I know about Ben is, remember, Ben used to be the lead editor of the Asian Bureau for Forbes magazine. So he's a professional reporter, is what he is, a professional journalist. So Ben has always been very faithful in reporting what he is being told. So the question, it's not so much that Ben is so bad, about his sources are either very bad or they're deliberately misleading. So it's hard to say, but on this stuff, when he was talking here about the collapse and stuff like that, I think most of that stuff is very accurate. Because if you notice, I rarely, ever send anything out in my newsletters. But this was one that I felt very good about, so I went ahead and sent it out in the newsletter. I sent his report out, his latest one. And so that one I felt fairly good about, the main content that was in there.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, okay?
Yeah. Great.
Because I agree, if I didn't like it, there was no way I'd send it out.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So I have a comment because it was talked about. The question came up about food storage. It's my opinion that we should have at least 6 months of food storage because things could get bad and stay bad.
It's possible. Well, I can tell you right now, if it's that bad for 6 months, we've got global chaos, and it's not about food. You better have some guns to protect yourself. If it gets that bad,
Okay.
you know, I don't see it being that bad, because if it gets to be that bad, we've got a system that's in absolute anarchy and chaos around the world. If it's that bad, I don't see a 6-month problem, because governments would step in and start taking over manufacturing and making sure that the people will survive. If you're talking 6 months, you're talking people dying from starvation. That's the extreme.
Yeah. Well,
But you know,
I'm glad you're optimistic like that.
everybody gets to make their own decisions. I would say, you know, minimally you should always have 2 to 3 weeks. Minimally. So, because the supply gets
So,
disrupted.
Another one coin going public. You think that'll be next year now?
Well, Robert is shooting by the end of the month. He has no control over that. It's depending on the cooperation of the banks that he's having to do business with for their bank account. That's where the problem is. And he can't control that. He has no control over that. He's doing everything he can. So I don't want to give. He's saying he's trying to get it done by the end of the year, but there is no specific tangible time frame on it.
Yeah, sure. All
Okay.
right, thanks. I really appreciate the program.
All right, great, thanks. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to the next lady. She is from area code 256, and we have a lady by the name of Susan. Susan, you're on the air. What can we help you with tonight?
Well, hello, Dave. Nice to talk with you again.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, please, or just to see what your opinion is. I belong to a group out west, and from what I gather, we're supposed to be paid in the new TRN, asset-backed currency. And, of course, you know, I do occasionally read those blog sites, and, you know, you're always hearing something that just doesn't make sense. But they're saying the president signed in the gold standard, and, you know, of course, I did a little bit of research, and that doesn't appear to be the truth. So I just wondered what your thoughts were.
Well, if he had signed in the gold standard, that would be international news, and it would be all over the news. It's not going to be just on 1 or 2 selected blog sites that hardly anybody reads, okay? And secondly, if we're going to make a transition to Treasury Reserve Notes, TRNs, that is going to be international news. That is not something that only a few selected blog sites are going to know about. So I don't trust that. I don't trust any of that information, because that is the type of stuff that affects international global economy. If we're going to go back to a gold-backed TRN, then you're going to find reports coming out of Wall Street, out of Treasury, out of stuff like that. You're going to find people talking about it and speculating on it, and I'm not hearing anything from them about that. So it's just, to me,
That's
it's...
what I'm told by my people, is that we will be paid in asset-backed currency.
Who's backing
Does
it?
that ring true for you?
Who's backing it? Where are they getting the money? And who's doing it? And where are the tangible reports about it? See, I think those are just empty stories that have nothing tangible to back them up, and people talk about it because they like to talk about that stuff. Just more stories that have nothing tangible to back them up.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder how much I can mention. Of course, I'm under an NDA. And I don't think I'd be breaking anything by saying they're inside of Texas.
No, I know. And I know, I'm pretty certain I know who it is that you're talking about. But see, I know, and my understanding is they have stated that it's pretty much their opinion, but there's nothing tangible to back it up as absolute. Nothing. It's just a story that doesn't have tangible issues behind it. And it's not something that has to happen for the exchange to take place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dad.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Take care.
All right. Okay, yeah. Bye-bye. Blanca, looks like that's all that we have for the people that called in tonight.
Yeah, so I'm glad we got a few people in before we signed off. Although the first two, I guess they didn't have a question after all. Let's see. It looks like we might have one more, maybe, Dave.
Oh, this is a new one that just came up.
The
Yeah.
214 maybe?
Yes, that's a new one that just came in. So let's go ahead and go to there. We're going to area code 214. Okay, it's coming up. Area code 214. You're on there. You're on the air. What's your name? What can we help you with?
Hey Dave, it's Mike.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I had a quick question. With the Meta One coin, didn't they charter a bank, or they like some kind of way acquired a bank?
Yes, but remember, there's two parts to Meta One Coin. Meta One Coin has its own bank, Meta One Bank, and that is a bank that has an 1808 charter. That is their own bank, but they also have to carry out banking relations with other banks. And until Meta One Bank is established as its own safe bank that the other banks aren't going to mess with, they still have to have a regular bank account at another bank to deposit the checks into. And that's where the problem has been.
Okay.
You see.
That's why they can't cash the checks,
Right.
or
Yeah. Yeah. So. Mhm.
that makes sense. to me.
Yeah.
So once they do establish these other accounts, or other, they would be able to flow it into their own bank from the Meta One Bank, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was reading another comment. Would you go ahead? I want to make sure I got you right. What did you say there again?
All right. Once he sets up these other banks in these other countries, then he would be able to flow let's say if you wanted to buy some coins. And
Yes. Yes.
write out a check.
You can still buy. You
cash
can.
the check there, then.
You can still. You can buy them. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can buy the coins anytime you want to. It's just that they've been having a problem in depositing the checks into a bank account. But that doesn't mean you can't go ahead and buy coins and write them a check. You can do that anytime you want to.
All right.
Okay?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Good night.
Okay, there was a question here that came up on Facebook. I wonder how come Bitcoin is allowed. Well, Bitcoin is dominated and manipulated by a very small group of very wealthy people, and it's not all free and clear, folks. There's been people that have had exchanges and they can't sell or buy their Bitcoins. I've heard a report, this one lady says it took her a month before she could sell her Bitcoin. It's not a smooth running operation. And also another comment came in that credit cards work fine to purchase Meta One in Canada, they had said. And yeah, so. Okay, so Blanca, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I think we got all the questions answered.
Yeah, and I think we pretty much covered most of the issues tonight. I can't think of anything else, and we've been on the air for almost 45 minutes, so a little bit of a short program tonight, but still a 45-minute program. So are we ready to call it a night?
I think it's time to say good night.
Okay, folks, then I'll see you next week. Oh, also, yes, I do go to Dallas tomorrow for a workshop this weekend. We still have plenty of seats there, but I will be back home for the program next week, so we'll see you then. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, what happened to my jingle? My jingle's not wanting to work. Let's see here. There it is. That was a delayed reaction. Okay, good night, folks. Okay.